Hello everybody, today we are doing more informational video. There will be no gameplay today. Today we are doing a tier list of all weapons, an updated tier list for version v1956, I think it is right now. There has been a lot of changes since the last video that I can remember existing for a weapon tier list, which would be TheeFURNAS' video. And it's 10 months old and it is extremely outdated. The game is developing super fast and a lot of changes happened, and now everything completely changed. So I'm doing an updated version. We are on the tier maker website. And sadly, nobody has made a better tier list ever since like the game release. It had a surge of popularity and there have been a few tier lists. Ever since, the game hasn't been as popular and nobody pretty much cared about the tier lists. So this tier list has only 12 weapons. So I had to manually add these 4 weapons. You have this little option here, you can modify the tier list. And I also modified some of the tiers. So I will be not linking this one up. Because basically it doesn't exist, it's just my version. I would happily make a tier list, but I don't really know how to make tier lists properly. Like you can see that the images I did are horrible basically, and I don't want them to be like that. Also, before we start, I have a quick announcement. If you don't want to hear about the previous video that should have happened today, then skip to this mark. I will stop talking about it there. So the video that should release like a week ago basically was the Crystal Dividends challenge. And I'm going to be honest, I was making the video, I was trying to make the video, but the challenge is actually so hard. The Crystal Dividends challenge is so hard that I was just unable to do it. And I don't really know, I didn't count, but I would estimate that I had like around 500 attempts, and the best I could do was getting 900 million. The challenge is to get to the Crystal Cap, which is 4,200,000,000, before Island 60, and the highest I got was 900 million, and I am postponing this challenge to the next update, because next update is doing a huge amount of rebalancing and a lot of things that could help us out with this challenge. Like for example, there will be new relics system, and one of the relics is, for example, adding another portal, which would be a huge game changer for our challenge if I could get that relic. So I'll just wait for that update. We will see how it plays out. I'll try doing it in the beta just in case it will actually be worse. I will be still able to go back to the regular version and do the challenge. I guess I'll just spend many hours trying, because it's definitely possible, but it's just really hard and requires a lot of luck and a lot of tries, and it's definitely more than 500. I would say it might be even like 2,000 attempts. So that's just really tiresome, and if I can just wait and the new version might make it easier, then I'll just wait and see if the new version makes it easier. I know I could also change the difficulty, for example, remove some of the modifiers. I know, but I still want it to be on Nightmare basically with all modifiers except the expensive shops, because shop is pretty important in getting the Crystal Dividends. So yeah, that's about it. I promised that the next video will be Crystal Dividends, but the challenge is just too hard, so I am postponing it to the next update. Okay, let's start with the tier list. This is Cluster Launcher, and I'll be putting it to... I didn't script this video, I didn't even prepare beforehand, so I'll be deciding live. I think it will be A tier, honestly. So the B tier is kind of special because overall in this game, most weapons are well balanced. Like there's a huge amount of weapons who will just work well, and there are a few weapons that are much better, a few weapons that are much worse, but all the weapons that are similar kind of in their firepower, I will be putting in the B tier, because it's going to be hard to differentiate between which one is better and which one is worse. And like, if I did this tier list tomorrow, I could like change my mind after a few attempts with those weapons. The next day I could also change my mind, because those weapons are so similar in firepower that it's hard to say which one is better. They are just all decent. So it will be weapons like auto rifle, like dual pistols, but we will go there. So cluster launcher is a fast firing, quite fast firing weapon that shoots 6 projectiles that can slide on the ground. That's, by the way, a very interesting mechanic that only this weapon has. It is very strong if you get on hit projectile mods, so things like bubble shot, spark shot, the ones that spawn things upon hitting the enemy. Right? It is very strong with those because of the fact that it has 6 projectiles. So basically the chance of them appearing applies only to the fire rate, because the slower fire rate, the higher is the proc chance. And this weapon is kind of fast firing, but it is a bit slower, so it has quite some chance. And it is multiplied by 6, because you have 6 projectiles and every single projectile can spawn something. Same with elementals, like poison. It is super stupidly strong with poison. So overall I would give it this. I think it deals 3 damage, so it's like 18 damage per shot, because 6 projectiles times 3, so that's pretty nice, and it can benefit from sharp shot quite a bit. Its only issue is basically its magazine, which is 6. You can deplete the magazine in under 2 seconds, which is kind of bad, but at least it reloads pretty quickly. Overall it is a really good weapon. It just doesn't work well with on-shot modifiers that well, but it is still really strong, though there are other multiple projectile weapons that are a bit better than it, I would say. Definitely crossbow, for example. The next weapon is blade launcher. I will have to put it in the D tier. I'm not putting it in the F tier, which is the burst pistol tier. I'll instantly put these 2 weapons there, and I'll explain later why. Obviously the burst pistol will be the first. But the blade launcher will be in the D tier, because I think it is just as weak as burst pistol and orb launcher, but its weakness is that it's just hard to kickstart. Like, if you get proper items on this weapon, it will basically be like, okay, game over, I won. But those combinations are quite rare, I would say. It includes elementals, it includes arc shot, which is very strong. Aura shot works well. Homing, this is probably the best weapon for homing, by the way, because homing does a crazy synergy with it, where since it is piercing and can hit 3 times in a row, homing blades will just hit enemies basically infinite times in a row and will home back to them. So one blade can basically kill an enemy. It will forever keep attacking it. So this and homing is very, very strong. But it is quite slow firing. Single shot weapon with piercing projectile that can pierce 2 enemies and can attack 1 enemy 3 times. So it's good with elementals. It's also pretty decent with on shot modifiers. It's pretty bad with on hits because it's just 1 projectile, but it's also not super good with on shots because it is quite slow. So the initial proc chance will be quite high, and the scalability will be kind of mid, let's say. So overall, it also deals quite low damage. Sharpshot can definitely help it, but it is just really, really hard to build at the beginning. And that is quite an issue for this weapon, and that's why I will be putting it at the D tier. So Burst Pistol is just the worst weapon in the game. It has low damage. It shoots 4 times in a row. Like if you click, it shoots 4 times. This is why it's a Burst Pistol, right? And it's annoying to me, and I just hate this weapon. Maybe it is a I think realistically probably Orb Launcher is the worst weapon, but Burst Pistol made me lose so many runs in the past that I just hate it so much, and it is just so bad. Nobody plays this weapon, by the way. I don't really remember anybody saying, oh, I did this run with Burst Pistol. People just don't like this weapon at all because it's boring and stuff. Like, more people play Auto Rifle, which is supposed to be this like boring, basically all-in-one weapon that does basically everything. And has no flavor to it. That's what the auto rifle is supposed to be. But no, people actually play auto rifle sometimes at least, but Burst Pistol never. Yeah, it is just, it doesn't have good synergies with anything basically. The only good things for it are going to be the on-shot projectiles. So on-shot are the ones that spawn upon shooting. Those can include Dagger Arc, Arcane Blast, Thorn Shot, also Time Bolt and Ultra Shot, the only projectile spawning blue mods. So that's also interesting. But yeah, it's definitely the worst weapon in the game. Still, ever since the beginning of the game, this remains the worst weapon. But yeah, Orb Launcher is also really close. Orb Launcher at least is interesting and it looks beautiful. The orbs it's shooting are really, really cool to look at. But this weapon is really hard to play with because it has quite low damage. And I mean, its damage is like, I think 6, and it shoots 15 times per second, I think, so that's 90 DPS. That seems really high, but the problem of the orbs is that they move slow throughout the air. So actually aiming at the enemy from anything else than very close range is really, really hard, and it's also inaccurate, and it also has small magazine. Like, you need big shot, bouncing shot, fast shot, grip tape, and Big Mac. Did I say Big Mac? I don't know. To basically make this weapon work, and none of these add any damage. You still need damage. Well, Big Shot does, but that's not a lot of damage. You still need damage perks and other damage mods. So it just requires a lot to even start being usable. And try fighting a school long range with this weapon. Impossible. And yeah, it also doesn't have a lot of synergies because it's basically like Burst Pistol, but kind of better looking, and also its projectiles are slow. At least it deals more damage. So I think the more damage that it deals overcomes the fact that the projectiles are slow, but it is really annoying, and its accuracy is going to be just absolutely low. Like, you will hit like 10, maybe 15% of your projectiles, maybe 20%. On elites, maybe 40%. That's just a huge blow to your DPS. So it is just really, really not pleasant to play with. Next is minigun. So I am putting minigun in the S tier. Whoops, this is not the minigun. Definitely, because this highest tier will be just for one weapon, the winner, which will be soon, as you can see here. Minigun is now in S tier. Probably in the previous update I would give it to I would put it to A tier, but now it's S tier. The escalating shot that it got, now it starts with escalating shot level 2. Previously it was shooting 25 times per second. Now with escalating shot level 2, it shoots, I think, 12.5 times per second, because escalating shot divides the fire rate by 2, minus 50%. But every time you shoot, you increase your fire rate by 2% until you reload. And minigun also got buffed. The magazine size got buffed from 125 to 200. So you can get, after shooting those 200 bullets, you can get 400% increase in fire rate. That's just minus 50% from the initial escalating shot debuff. So that's 350% fire rate increase for free, basically, since the start. So that is really a big change that made the minigun really OP, especially with something like tall shot. Minigun is the go-to weapon for on-shot modifiers, basically. Yes, there are also laser rifle, but I think, like, come on, like 350% increase. Just get one Big Mac, and that's 100 projectiles with 350% still increasing for free. The fire rate, so that's just insane. It scales out of control so much, and you can still upgrade the escalating shot. I had one run in Namo, which is Nightmare, all modifiers on to Island 60, where I got escalating shot to level 5 eventually, and I didn't even need to take any other fire rate increasing mod. I didn't take a single other one. Just the escalating shot completely carried the game, and it was really pleasant to play with. So yeah, it is going to be S tier. It also deals 2 damage, which means sharp shot will make it deal 7 damage, so that's a huge increase, 250% increase. And it's also pretty damn good with on hits, honestly. It works really well with on hits as well. Despite having just one projectile. So it is just a very good weapon for a huge amount of builds. Maybe elemental builds are not very good for it, but well, I guess. Aura and glue is also very good for it. It is just very strong weapon, and I think every minigun user can definitely say that. But it is not the strongest weapon, in my opinion. It is the second strongest weapon. Rocket launcher. S tier, definitely. Just get arc shot on it, or triple shot, or split shot, and you basically won the game, almost. Those are epic mods, that's true, so it might be a little bit hard to get them. But if you struggle with getting those epics, just get something like time shot, plus 100% damage. That's basically increasing its damage from 35 to 70. And yeah, it has AoE, and the AoE is huge, and honestly, if I was doing a flawless run, I always take rocket launcher. In my opinion, doing a flawless run is the easiest with rocket launcher, just because of how easy it is to keep all enemies at bay. Though the problem with rocket launcher definitely could be the elites, especially the school elites, because shooting schools is hard with this weapon. If you have a trouble with shooting a school with this weapon, just aim to the ground right under the school, because they have a weird hitbox, the schools, and it will just reach the hitbox. The AoE from a rocket hitting the ground right under the school, it will hit it. So that's how you basically defeat schools with this weapon if you have trouble. Arc shot starts with 50%. Triple shot starts with 80%, I believe. Split shot is another 50%, and split shot can split arc and triple shot. So that's just, if you get arc shot and split shot to level 2, it's producing like tens of projectiles with every shot, and it's just, you cannot lose. Actually, even if you didn't get damage or something, you cannot lose really. So it might be a bit hard to build, but it is definitely not the blade launcher tier. Like, the difference between rocket launcher and blade launcher is that rocket launcher is much easier to build. And if you get a build, it is much stronger than whatever you could get on blade launcher, honestly. Except homing. Actually, rocket launcher is the only weapon where homing is bad. It is actually more annoying than actually helping, because you're supposed to hit like ground or objects of the map, and the blast radius is supposed to attack the enemies, damage them. So this is how you basically attack, and you're aiming at the enemies. With homing, the projectile will just go away somewhere else, and it is really annoying. So yeah, that would be rocket launcher for us. So we have crossbow. Crossbow is the best weapon in the game, and I have been saying this ever since the beginning of the game, ever since it released, ever since the very first version of the release. Crossbow is just having very high DPS. It is easy to aim with it. It has good crowd control and also single target damage from medium range, let's say. Like long range crossbow is but medium range is definitely very, very strong. It is the strongest weapon with on hit procs, so that includes elementals, so poison, one level of poison shot, and crossbow is basically a win already, almost. Same goes with bubble shot, same goes with spark shot. It is just really, really strong. And with on-shot projectiles, it can also work pretty well, because it shoots 3.5 times per second. It's obviously much better with on hits, because it shoots 7 projectiles. And like imagine this, like you get for example a seagull, right, which shoots the same amount of projectiles per second. I mean, not projectiles, but just like shots. Seagull shoots 4 times per second, crossbow shoots 3.5 times per second. And imagine you get a mod that has like 30% on seagull and 15% on crossbow. If it's on hit, you basically multiply the chance of crossbow by 7. It's 90% compared to the 30%. I don't know if what I say makes sense or makes it better to visualize what I'm talking about, but actually the math checks out, and crossbow has the highest proc chance out of every single weapon in the game in terms of on hit projectiles. And on shot projectiles are not minigun or laser cannons, actually, which is interesting. I'll go to that in a moment. But yeah, crossbow is just a very good weapon for any build, in my opinion, and in the speedrunning community opinion. It is the most versatile weapon, which means you can have the most builds on crossbow out of all weapons that will work well. That means, like, I don't know, for minigun you might have like 10 builds, for rocket launcher you might have like 15 builds or something. On crossbow we will have 30 builds, and no other weapon will have 30 builds that will work well. Like I'm throwing those numbers randomly, but that's I'm just trying to visualize what I mean by that. So it is the best beginner weapon as well. Because of that, you can just make it work with the most amount of builds. So beginners will definitely have an easy time with it. And since it's the most consistent, it's probably also the best for making win streaks, which don't really matter in the game, but if you cared, then I guess, yeah. So the next weapon is dual shotguns, definitely A tier. Dual shotguns were pretty bad for a moment. They used to be the second best weapon. Then they fell off quite a lot. Now they made a comeback, kind of, because they are just as strong with on hits as the crossbow is, but you really kind of need an on hit mod for this weapon. For these weapons, it shoots really, really slow, but it deals a lot of damage. I think its DPS I think is 120, which is I think that would be the highest in the game, by the way. But yeah, it is really slow, it is kind of hard to aim with it, and you need to be close range. This is also the weapon with the lowest range in the game. But yeah, just get some fire rate upgrades, and it is a super strong weapon, really. And get an elemental, like poison, for example. It will work just as well as crossbow with poison. It is just overall a very strong weapon. I don't really have a lot to say about this weapon, because it's basically just a weaker crossbow, but with the difference that it shoots way slower. It cannot aim. You sadly lose the ability to aim because it's a dual wield weapon. And because of that you can also not reduce the spread that you can do with the crossbow, but it shoots 12 projectiles instead of 7 at once. Well, if you shoot both of them at once, which I basically do all the time. So it is basically a really, really good A tier. It's also unlocked since the beginning. I don't know if you ever noticed, but auto rifle is not the only weapon that is unlocked since the beginning. Dual shotguns are also unlocked since the beginning. So if you don't like the auto rifle when you start the game, you can go with the shotguns, and they are definitely much better than the auto rifle. So yeah. That is what goes for this weapon. So now comes the B tier, which is the middle tier, as I explained at the beginning. So I'll put auto rifle in there. This is the first weapon that goes there. I'll put also the dual shotguns, auto shotgun, sniper, and arcane wand in there. I'm debating about the flamethrower, but I think I will put it in C tier, sadly, because of how it fell off, kind of. So these weapons are kind of similar to each other. Like, obviously, sniper is definitely different from auto shotgun and arcane wand, right? But these weapons are really hard to classify. They're decent, but not as good to put them in A tier, but they are also not as bad to put them in the C tier. That's interesting to see that flamethrower will go to C tier in a moment, but when it got released, I would put it in the S tier. Some people even considered it to be the best weapon in the game, but it no longer is, and it's sad, kind of. So these weapons, I'll be just saying some words about them really shortly. The auto rifle I already explained. It is kind of a weapon that you start with, and it is how you learn the game on this weapon, kind of. It does basically everything. It is fast shooting. It has just one projectile that deals some damage. I think it's like 5 or 4. It has 40 magazine. It is just a decent weapon, but it's just a boring weapon, kind of, but it is decent, definitely. Like, blade launcher is definitely much more interesting, but harder to really do something with. Dual pistols are dual wielded. They have 24 magazine each. They basically are almost identical to the auto rifle. Their projectiles are just slower, and I think they shoot slightly slower. But this weapon is the highest on shot proc chance weapon. Because of it being dual. This is the weapon that has the highest on shot modifier proc chance. And it is very interesting because this fact doesn't make it really good. Unfortunately, despite it being the best in the game with on shots, it just doesn't make it like super good. Overall, I would probably put it even in the D tier, if not for the fact that it is just really good with on shots. So if you get like dagger arc, you can definitely win easily. But yeah, it is just not easy to play with them otherwise. Auto shotgun, this one I might be getting wrath of the community on me for putting it here, but I played with it after the change because it got 400, I think it was 300 or 400% proc chance increase, and apparently it's really good now. I don't really see that. Despite the proc chance change, it doesn't feel that good, honestly. It's basically like dual shotguns, but very fast firing, and it is also quite long range. And if you aim with it, you can also make the spread smaller, just like you can do with the crossbow. But it just isn't as powerful as the dual shotguns. Actually, I think it's 2 times less powerful in terms of DPS, at least. It just feels kind of eh. It is definitely good to play with, it is definitely winnable, but often I find myself struggling with this weapon, honestly. But definitely, since it's a multi-shot weapon, poison is the savior. But getting poison is also like hard. You shouldn't have a weapon that relies on one strategy, because then you can just not get that item required for that strategy, and you will just lose, I guess. Sniper used to be decent, but it got kind of left behind. Like, the new updates don't really add much that could be good for sniper, because it's a weapon that basically you need to get arc shot and triple shot on it. It will be really good then. But otherwise, you need to just get damage on it, and basically there is nothing you can build on it. On hits are mid, on shots are also mid, because they start with high proc chance, so it's hard to scale them up. and it is also kind of slow firing. The best thing about sniper is definitely its magazine, because it shoots 1.1 times per second, and its magazine is 10, so that means that you will deplete its magazine in over 9 seconds, so that's the highest value in the game, I believe. So yeah, it deals 80 DPS, I guess, but it's not very good. It's just, you just need to get arc shot and triple shot and split shot on it to actually make it work. Otherwise, you might actually lose. It is kind of hard to build on it. So yeah, that's about it. Arcane Wand is maybe controversial to put in here, because it is definitely interesting to play with, and it definitely differs from those 4 weapons. But it's short range, its AoE is non-existent, and Arcane kind of falls off, because it starts with Arcane Shot, of course. It kind of falls off late game, so it's just not good for later game. You can kind of build it like rocket launcher, but that is like triple shot, arc shot, split shot, but those items will have lower chances on this weapon because it is way faster, firing way faster. It actually has really good starting DPS. It is very, very good for the start. It is probably one of the best weapons for the start, but by Island 10, it kind of gets obsolete unless you get some good upgrades. So you can get arc shot, triple shot, split shot, but they will be much harder and longer to build upon until they actually make a difference. So people often describe this weapon as a rocket launcher, but weaker and low range, but at least with Arcane, I guess. Just a weaker rocket launcher. And I kind of have to agree, it is true, basically. It is a weaker rocket launcher, and it is not worth A tier in my opinion. Maybe you could say it's A tier because it is really, really easy to play in early game with it. In my opinion, it is definitely B tier because it is kind of there. You can kind of build it sometimes not really. It really depends on the day, I guess. It's a pretty tricky weapon, definitely. So the next weapon is a laser rifle, and I'm going to put laser cannon, I think it's called. I will put it here in front of the minigun, because in my opinion this weapon is the second best weapon in the game, and I have trouble with determining whether minigun or laser cannon is the second best weapon, because I put laser cannons there because they have higher proc chance than minigun and are more reliable. Like, the minigun starts with the escalating shot, and yes, it will scale much faster and better later on, but in the early game, I don't know, maybe it will be important for you to actually shoot fast in the early game, right? And laser cannons, one laser cannon can shoot 15 times per second, so both of them shoot 30 times per second, and minigun starts at 12.5 times at the beginning. So that's much lower, and laser cannons have the same damage as minigun, which is 2. So they are basically better at the beginning, in my opinion. So that's why I put it on the second place. As I said, 30 times per second, 2 damage. It is extremely strong with on-shot modifiers. Not as strong as the dual pistols, but they are also much stronger than the dual pistols. So you can start building up on shots and in the background, and meanwhile you can still start getting a good build on this weapon, so to defend yourself before you get the good on-shot build, right? Which is much harder to do on dual pistols. They are also my favorite weapon in the game when we are judging by the looks. I absolutely love the model of it. I also love how they look like when you shoot. They just shoot out those lasers, which is, I just really like that. I really like how it looks like. It's one of my favorite weapons, favorite looking weapons, definitely. That's about it, really, what I have to say, because you build it exactly like the minigun. There's not much difference in it, except the fact that you cannot aim. It is a dual-wielded weapon. It is just slightly stronger than the minigun because it has higher proc chance overall. Like, one cannon will have 1 times proc multiplier. Minigun has 1.5 times proc multiplier. Like the base proc multiplier, but since you have 2 cannons, the overall laser cannons multiplier is 2, and minigun stays at 1.5 because you have only 1 minigun. So this is where the higher proc chance comes from, right? The flamethrower, it used to be the second best weapon. I said that already, but now I am putting it at C tier. It is pretty bad nowadays. Like fire, which it is building around, it starts with fire shot. It's not as good anymore. It got buffed when it got released, but I think it got nerfed later on, or in any case, like it is worse now than it was before. And it also got its damage reduced to 1, so its projectiles deal only 1 damage, the lowest in the game. And I don't think that was fair. I really don't think that was fair. I think it should be brought back up to 2. Especially that it doesn't shoot even that fast. I don't know how fast it shoots, but it's like 10 or 15 times per second, something like that. So that would be like 15 DPS now. Yes, I know there's fire, of course, but still you have fire enemies. Like Elite Fire School, for example, will completely cripple you if you go for fire build only. You have to have a regular build. And yes, Sharpshot will be the best. This is the best weapon for Sharpshot, plus 500% base damage. But kind of so what if you don't get the Sharpshot? Sharpshot actually seems quite rare in this game, so like you can just not get it and you are doomed, basically, right? So you have to do something else, kind of, and you don't really have anything else to do. The only thing that can save it is on shots, like Thorn Shot, Dagger Arc, definitely good with those, but that's the only build you can go with, compared to all the other weapons where you don't have to go with on-shots. You can go with other builds. Here you kind of have to go for on-shots to actually get somewhere, so that doesn't make it really, really good, honestly, anymore. It used to be super good, but now it's really bad. And the last weapon, Sigil. I am really divided whether to put it on A tier or S tier. I think I'll put it on S tier, honestly. It is very strong. It deals 25 damage 4 times per second, so that's 100 DPS, one of the highest in the game. And you can basically build it like exactly the same as Arcane Wand. It just won't have the AoE and Arcane, but still it will be stronger than it because it projectiles fire faster, or like travel faster, I want to say. And also it has infinite range, basically, compared to Arcane Wand's medium range, where the projectiles disappear and explode, which is kind of sad for Arcane Wand. If you build it like I think triple shot starts with 70% on it, so it is really strong with triple shot. On shots are pretty good with it, on hits are also decent, but on shots is definitely better. They will start with quite high proc chance, that's true, but still I think for 60 runs, like Iron 60 runs, it's still enough to get a nice build. Yeah, it is just a very, very good weapon, an alternative to Sniper, a better alternative to Sniper. People often call it like a better Sniper that just deals a bit less damage, and I think it is really unfair. The existence of Sigil is really unfair for Sniper. Like it just superseded Sniper. That's basically it. Yeah, so it is a very good weapon, even if you don't have on shots, on hits, elementals, triple shot, arc shot. You can still just go with a regular damage build, something that you would do upon the release of the game. You would just basically went for damage, and it will still be really good because its damage is really strong and it is really easy to aim with it. Really easy to aim with it. So that's why it is getting S tier, but it is definitely the weakest out of the S tier weapons, I would say, at least. Okay, So that would be it basically from this video. I hope it wasn't too boring. I know it's really long, but I wanted to explain every weapon, how to build it, and why am I placing it there. So I spent like, what, 3 minutes per weapon on average, maybe like 2 minutes. So yeah, that's going to be my tier list. It's going to be updated for version v1956. I believe the next update will not change much, but if an update changes much, I will redo this video yet again. I will be keeping you up to date with these weapon tier lists. And yeah, that's about it from this video. If you watched until the end, thank you so much. This will probably go for the thumbnail. And yeah, that's about it. See you in the future videos. Bye.